Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to change it up a little bit and talk to you guys about clothing. So, if you're into the running shoe game like I am, I'm sure one of the things that you all see and are probably bombarded with all the time, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on YouTube, whatever all these influencers online are doing, a lot of them have some kind of running brand that they promote, whether they like it or not. I think, for example, some of my favorites like Kellen runs Philly. I feel like he's got some pretty cool outfits that he shares from a wide array of brands. But when it comes down to you as the consumer, what does it actually help you with, and where is the actual value in these running brands and running companies, right? Because I think at the end of the day, just like any other specialty brand, whether it's the Bandit, whether it's the Tracksmith, right? The intention should be, okay, this is from a brand that is supposed to be intentionally built for the activity that I am involved with. So in this case, we're talking about running. But I think there's a few caveats here that you as the consumer really should be thinking about when you're looking at all these different running brands. And I swear there's going to be a new one popping up every couple of weeks at this point, because I feel like the running culture has really become part of the broader hype beast culture today. And so I thought it'd be really useful just to give you guys some perspective, some things to be looking out for when you are shopping and when you are seeing some of these things online. So let's dive into it. So I think the first and foremost thing that, and just like I do with all of my shoe reviews, is you want to be thinking about the value of the pieces that you are buying. Because trust me, none of this stuff is cheap, right? Like the Bandit shirt, the Tracksmith shirts, they're some of my personal favorites, but they are pricier than normal. And that's why I don't wear them every day. But there's still value to them and why I still purchase them, right? Because, for example, with this Bandit Spectre piece, I believe it was about $70, it might be $72 if I'm not mistaken. And then same thing with this long sleeve that I wear during the wintertime from Tracksmith. It's a merino wool blend. And so, but again, during the wintertime, immense value for a shirt like this. So the premise of everything I'm going to be talking about here is going to be, at the core of it, what is the value? So a few other things to keep in mind, because it's summertime. I know a lot of people are trying to find every which way that they can try to beat the heat, buying clothing. And then the latest thing that everyone's talking about now is all these cooling technology fabrics. And I'll get to that here in a moment, right? So again, what are these fabrics actually going to be doing? So let's talk about the fabrics first. So when you're thinking of the shirts, the shorts, whatever the gear is, the material itself is going to be the core component of it, right? So, and that's why I have an array of different shirts up here. So this is an old Nike tennis shirt. It's one of their old school UV tennis shirts. I've had this thing for maybe 12 years now. And this is a slightly thicker material. But again, I've had it for 12 years. It's a UV protecting shirt and it's very breathable. It even has some side vents here. Originally built for tennis, I use it for running. I think sometimes, cross or multi-sport type style shirts work great. And this is probably one of my favorite daily shirts to wear. And again, it's just lasted so long. Same thing as I'm sure you guys see all the time. I wear this one brand, Arc. Again, it's a solid shirt. It's on the thicker side, but a few things is that it doesn't give me any skin irritation. My skin does get a little bit sensitive, and those are some of the things that I consider non-negotiables for myself. So, but as opposed to now things like this Bandit Spectre shirt, this is very thin and it's very lightweight and it's and I wouldn't say it's very breathable, but there are things in it that will overcome that, as opposed to something that's more breathable like the Nike shirt, right? And so let's talk about what I just mentioned earlier, which is going to be this whole cooling fabric technology. Like, what actually is that at the end of the day? Is it real? Is it a marketing gimmick, etc.? And so there are shirts like this from Bandit, and I think there's ones from, I know Satisfy has one, and I forget the other brands that promote this cooling technology. What a lot of them are is it's just literally holding onto your sweat, because just from an evolutionary standpoint, that's what was actually cooling our bodies down naturally. That's why we sweat. And so what a lot of these shirts and all these fabric companies are talking about with this cooling technology is that it's really leveraging your sweat to cool you down, because it's actually going to hold on to it. And I'm sure there's some property in it that's going to bring down the temperatures a couple of degrees, but that's really what it's doing at the end of the day. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, and I don't have it here because I actually sold it because of the mesh and it just doesn't gel well with my skin, is something like the Nike Radical Airflow shirt. That shirt was interesting because it wasn't relying on your sweat as a cooling fabric. It was actually looking at how to increase the airflow, and it did work pretty well on the run, I will say. But again, at the end of the day, I don't necessarily believe that those cooling technologies are worth the $30 to $40 upgrade. To be perfectly honest with you, if there was a tank top version of this shirt today, I would be just as happy running in it as I would in any of much more so than the Nike Radical Airflow shirt that I paid, I think it was like $100, because I was able to get a discount when I ordered it online. So I will say this though, one thing that I've really appreciated, and I don't have it up here because it's actually in the wash right now, is my currently penultimate tee. And the reason I like that is that it does have some holes in it and it has a crop fit. And so what that does is that it actually, so one, it does it, and again, they don't promote it this way, but it has that same cleanliness of the fabric when you get sweaty to keep you cool. But then also at the same time, as opposed to a shirt like this that doesn't have any holes anywhere, it's actually very breathable because it does have some little circles throughout it that actually make it breathable. So that is probably the one I would recommend if you're going to be spending the money on any of these types of fabric that are promoting some kind of cooling technology. And the one call out here to also consider is this Tracksmith shirt. So I have two of this one specifically. I believe this is the Harrier, and then I also have one long sleeve Brighton. And I have three of those shirts. They're merino wool blends, and I've had the same three going on 2 years now, and I'm not buying any more, and I'm keeping the three that I have going into my third winter. And the reason for that is because of the quality of the fabric. And that's the one thing you do want to look out for during the winter, is something with merino wool. One, because of the thermal regulation, and especially once we get through those transition periods in the seasons between fall and winter, where it's like, oh, the run might start around like 30, 40 degrees, and then, or maybe even 20, 30, and then go up into like the 40s. These shirts have great range when it comes to the use cases for them. And I love them. They're built really well. And that's actually the thing we'll get into next, which is the actual build quality themselves. And so, as I'd mentioned before, I've had this Nike shirt for at least 10, 12 years. And the reason for that, and a big thing to be thinking about when you're looking at your running clothing, is how is it actually constructed? So once you have the fabric, the next thing you think about is how's that fabric actually being held together to make your shirt? The beautiful thing about this Nike shirt, for example, is that it's very heavily stitched, right? So for this shirt to actually fall apart and be undone, someone would have to, or the stitching is just going to have to rip and fade over time. And that's why over time, this shirt has held up so well. Same thing with the build quality of my Tracksmith shirt. The quality of the stitching, like you can tell, like it's stretchy because they use some kind of spandex in it, I'm sure, for some give, but it's not going to in any way fall apart. The thing to consider with some of these other brands, and I'm sorry to do this to you, Bandit, because this is objectively one of my favorite shirts, but why I'm a little adverse to buying another one, is that this uses, and this is an important thing to look out in the product descriptions, it's going to be the bonded seams. And so what that means is, and as you can see here, and I'll put some pictures up in case you can't see it, is that the bonded seams are literally using glue. So for some people, that's going to be a big problem because you actually have to take extra care when you're using those kinds of shirts that have bonded seams. So if you accidentally, for example, use the hot setting for your washer, or you accidentally put that in the dryer, that glue, those bonded seams are at very high risk to fall apart. So durability is also something that you have to be thinking of, not only from the fabric itself standpoint. I mean, all these are going to be polyester for the most part, other than the Tracksmith shirt, but the other thing is, how's it actually being constructed? And the problem with a lot of these new shirts nowadays, and this was something I even noticed in tennis clothing about 8 years ago, is that a lot of them have moved towards this bonded seam type of approach to their clothing. And it feels nice, right? Because you don't have to worry about any kind of chafing. It's very smooth, but at the same time, the problem becomes is that it's really just it's basically glue. It's an adhesive that's holding the fabric together. And so over time, through multiple washes, there's going to be a much higher degree of risk of it falling apart. Or worse yet, if the shirt gets caught on something, like if, for example, I like walk into my shelf in my garage and my shirt gets hooked on, it might just stretch and pull that adhesive apart. So it's not only, so again, just to recap, we need to be thinking about what the fabric is doing. Is it going to be a durable fabric? What is the thickness of it? Or is it lightweight? Is it breathable? And then we then need to think about, okay, what is the actual construction of putting it together? And that's something that is very underrated, and why I find it very cautionary to recommend certain shirts and brands to people, because of this bonded seam issue that I see all the time now. I get that for a lot of people, they're very comfortable, especially if you have any type of irritation from stitching in general, but the longevity of that clothing is going to be at a much greater risk. Now, what I would recommend though, is if you are going to go for these bonded seam shirts because that's just what works for you, you don't particularly care about the price, how do we actually get some longevity out of the clothing that we are wearing as runners? Because again, if we're running, 5-6 days a week, or even up to 7 days a week, you're going to be going through your clothes a lot. And so what I recommend is using the tap cold setting on your washer. And the difference between cold and tap cold is that the tap cold is using just the straight tap cold, whatever the tap water temperature is for the pipes. So it's typically cold. And I found out recently that actually, depending on where you live, for example, like the depth of the piping in your house or your condo or apartment or wherever you live, and if it's hot during the summertime over 100 degrees, it might actually be warmer. But in general, tap cold is going to be the safer option over cold, because cold, it does put in some heated water, and I think the temperature ends up being between 60 and 80 degrees. So do that first, make sure it's on tap cold, unless you're in any of those situations that I just mentioned before. And then also hang dry all of your clothing. All of these shirts get hung dried, especially because they're polyester material. Polyester does not do well with any type of dryer in general, and especially when we start thinking about these bonded seams, you need to be mindful of that, because that will destroy, and I mean destroy, your shirts or shorts. I've accidentally done it years ago to a couple of my favorite shirts, RIP to them, and I think it's something that people really need to be thinking about. So just to close out here, so again, thinking of running brands and their clothing, you always want to be thinking about, first and foremost, what is the value? And I think value is super important. I mean, that's why it's part of my rating system, right? You want to be thinking of what is the value that I'm getting. And value when it comes to clothing is going to be for, one, is it going to work for what I need it for its intended use case? Because just like shoes, your clothing to a degree is going to be a tool. But then also at the same time, how long is it going to last for? For example, this Nike shirt, amazing value. I mean, even when I was playing tennis, I could very easily wear this in 100+ degree weather for a 2+ hour match in the middle of summer, no problem. And I've had it for that long, so you already know it's a good deal. Again, same thing with my Tracksmith shirt. When it's wintertime, I had the same 3 shirts going into my 3rd season, this coming up fall and winter. I know exactly what I'm getting. It's old reliable. Something with bonded seams like the Bandit shirt, aesthetically, beautiful. I love this shirt. Every time I put this shirt on, I feel like a whole new man. Only time will tell though if those bonded seams are going to work out. So with that being said, guys, I hope you guys like this different video, just something else to be thinking about outside of the running shoes, because there's a lot of other gear components. And if you guys want me to do any other specific reviews or give any feedback, just let me know down in the comments below. Like I said, I want this to be a resource to help you guys in your journey from running. And again, if we can save some money going for something that's going to last longer and be more reliable, I think that does everyone a world of good. So hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll talk soon.